Joining us now to discuss America's accountant, Dan Geltrude. Dan, thanks so much for being here today. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Of course. So, Dan, whatever happened to no taxation without representation? And what happened to the government being broke? I thought we were broke and couldn't afford any of this, but now suddenly we can afford to spend $80 billion to track down innocent people who are just trying to get by. What do you make of all of this?
So the logic here is that the IRS is only going to audit the rich people. Now, keep in mind when they're talking about the IRS auditing rich people, the reason for that is they believe that the rich are cheating on their taxes. Now, there are tax cheats everywhere. It's just a popular political thing to say, let's go after the big bad rich people. But the other thing to remember is that the rich don't have to necessarily cheat on their taxes. Why? Because they have accountants and lawyers that are working on what's called tax avoidance, not necessarily tax evasion. And even when you audit them, they have the resources to represent themselves in a way where it takes a long time to collect. Now, the reason I'm saying all that is what happens if you can't get all the money that you think you're going to get from the rich? Who's next in line? Oh, no, it's those people making under $400,000, the very people that the Biden administration said we're not going after. But they have to go after them in order to justify spending $80 billion. There's got to be some return on investment.
Yeah, it's truly insane. Do you think that people will be able to resist this in any way, or is this just how it's going to be moving forward? Or do they just get to tell us, our tax dollars are going towards this, or do the people actually even have any say in the matter?
I don't think that people have a say in the matter from the standpoint of this has already been voted on, and Congress and the president have selected a direction to go in, and that's that they are going to increase the size of the IRS substantially. Now, listen, I got to tell you, the IRS does need help. They can't do the basics, which is like, how about this? Processing refunds on a timely basis. So they certainly need resources. But of course, what everybody is concerned about is the abuse. Let's get all these auditors out there and really start shaking everyone down. Well, that's making a big assumption that, as I said before, a whole bunch of people are cheating on their taxes. Look, we could all agree you have to pay taxes that are due. But what happens when you can't justify this? You have to go hard on taxpayers in order to recoup that investment.
Yes, absolutely. And now switching over to bank runs, it seems as though a lot of independent banks are in quite a bit of trouble currently, as there's now just reportedly an estimated $550 billion that has moved out of smaller banks. Do you think this is perhaps all being done by design and is maybe a nefarious plan to try to force everyone into larger banking institutions?
If that's the case, not only is it a terrible thing, it really is something that's going to hurt so many people. Because these mid-sized banks and even small community banks, they are the ones hands-on with their customers. The smaller customers, the small businesses, which make up the majority of the employers in the United States, they're the ones that really need that hand-holding. Now, if you ultimately end up pushing everyone towards the big banks, that's simply not going to work. So we really need these small to mid-sized banks to be able to survive. Now, of course, when you spread fear across the country and people are saying, well, we're going to have to go to a big bank. Why? Too big to fail. We saw that back in 2008, right? The federal government picked winners and losers. And the winners were the big banks. So let's hope that's not going to be the case this time around, because the American people will really be disserviced by doing that.
Yes, well, we'll certainly be hoping for the best there. Now, in other news, Dan, Pepsi is now using AI to track consumer demand and speed up product development. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I say get used to it because everyone is going to be using artificial intelligence to the max. And is that a good thing? Maybe, maybe not. Because in this particular case, with Pepsi looking at trends, right? They're looking at what their customers are doing. And by looking at that, you start to encroach on people's privacy, right? Whether it's on their phones or whatever the case. I mean, is anything private anymore? It doesn't seem that way, and it really gets to the point where these large companies can actually read our minds, or how about this, influence our minds. So it's a slippery slope here.
It is a slippery slope. It's slightly terrifying, if you ask me. I don't know if I want AI that involved in my everyday life, but I think you could agree now that Pepsi is implementing this. Nothing pairs with a Pepsi quite like some fresh McDonald's fries. But sadly, the fast food giant just announced they'll be laying off hundreds of corporate employees as they're restructuring to be, quote, more dynamic, nimble, and competitive. What does this mean for McDonald's lovers, and what can we expect in the future?
Well, it depends how you look at this once again. If you're an investor in McDonald's, well, you're happy to hear this because you want to make sure the companies that you're investing in are lean and they're profitable. Hey, that's great. Now, as a consumer of McDonald's products, and I love McDonald's, you start to say, okay, how is this going to impact pricing? But in McDonald's specifically, I have gone back to the beginning related to when they were starting the movement of $15 an hour minimum wage for the fast food service industry. And what did that give us? It gave us higher prices and it gave us layoffs because they replaced those people with what? AI. So I anticipate companies will continue to get leaner, letting people go and relying more and more on AI.
I think you're right.
How it is.
I know. It's crazy. I've already seen videos of fully self-sustaining McDonald's that don't even have a single human employee there. So it certainly does seem like that's the track we're on. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people follow your work for more?
Always get me at geltrude.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.